Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach, and again, did some work off camera on rocks, and I've got it into what I think is a fairly decent state now with the tests and identifying constructors and methods. One thing I thought of last night that I went kind of a whoops, or not a whoops, but maybe a possible uh-oh, is if a method is taking something by reference or it's an out parameter, then when I set the expectation up as one of my extension methods, do I still keep it as a ref or do I keep it as an out? I don't know. It's what you're really trying to see is the value coming in, is that a value that's expected. Okay. But if it's by ref, are you saying it's because it's literally equal to the same reference? Is that what you care about? But then you could set up an expectation to do an object.reference equals if you really wanted to do that. The only problem though is, let's say I have something like this. I have public class A and I do void foo int A, which does nothing. And then I have, no, public. Why are you complaining? Oh, shut up. I hate it when it does that. Public void foo ref int A. So you can do that. That is possible. Let's actually get rid of that noise and make it static. Now it's just saying that these are unused. Yeah. Actually, we can even change that. We can make these strings, make that go away. There. Oh, God. When you have so much turned on in IntelliSense, or not IntelliSense, editor config, you can make some exploration really just annoying. There. And now you're going to say, I'm a static class. Yep. Oh my God. Let's have private read-only int A B is whatever, 3. And let's get rid of this and get rid of that. And we'll make this int foo, which is equal to A plus B. Now you shut up. This dot. God. Jeez. The stuff I go through just to make sure I prove something out in my head. There. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that there's no difference between the two. But if I make something a ref, then and I have this. I mean, this is a pretty rare case, but rare cases mean they show up. Somebody somewhere has done this. And so how do I handle that? Again, because I'm going to be generating static methods that have to have the same signatures as these things. And if I do this, how do I capture a ref? Or even worse, how do I capture an out? Like, what's the difference? Or do I generate the methods and then I just simply say, well, whatever you pass in for A is what it is. And that's what you're dealing with. And, you know, if you change the value here, you know, if it's a reference, it would eventually, if you change it outside, what you were referring to should now be referencing the old thing. But maybe if you're going to do equals, you know, you're actually going to be saying equals based on the overridden equals. So I think this is, now that I'm talking about this, I think this should be okay. And that I generate the methods the way these are supposed to be. I do have to be careful though with outs, because outs have to be initialized by the calling method. So in that case, yeah, I personally, with C# 8 and tuples, which are, one of the primary things that it tried to solve, or that it does solve, is multiple return values. And personally, I think if you're using outs, you should be using multiple return values. That's just my personal preference. I think it reads easier in code if you do it that way. But however people do it, the thing is, out is valid in C#. You can't prevent people from doing it. And so if I had something like out and I just take this out, okay, now it's going to say, yeah, you didn't assign this. So if I say this, now I got to say a is equal to 3, and then it works. You have to assign it to something. Okay, if I say default here, that's just going to be, in the case of a value type for int, it's going to be 0. So I'm going to have to also do this in the methods that I generate, which is going to be interesting, because how do you set up an expectation for an out parameter? Because we've not been able to do that before in Rux, because you can specify out or ref values in actions and funcs. So this is new territory. And I don't know what MOQ or NSubstitute does to handle this. So I think this is right now something in the back of my head that I have to. The ref case isn't so bad. The out case, I think, is a little problematic. You really can't specify what you want from it other than what comes out of it. Okay. And so somebody wouldn't be passing anything in for the out value. I guess what you could do is say, well, my expectation is when I handle this is that I can specify an out parameter, but that's about it. You can't, nobody's going to pass anything into you. I don't think you can you? Like if we do this, okay. And now I say var a is equal to new a dot foo. Yeah, you can do that. You can't say out 3 because that's not a variable. I'll var b. You can do that, but then b isn't used. But yeah, so the only thing you can do with an out parameter is be able to specify, like I'm going to have to handle, it's a return value essentially. And I'm going to have a way to say it returns, well, you could either return, because there could be, like in a try parse method, you could return the result, but then you could also return 0 to n out values. And I'm going to have to change returns there. Okay. All right, I think I just talked myself into what I need to do, but I'm going to just try to handle the easy cases now. And one thing that I also landed on is I am going to have two different generators, one for the create and one for the make. So there will be a create here. There's eventually going to be a make, which right now, as I've mentioned many times before, that just makes a dummy object that implements something and does the minimal amount of work so that you can actually use it. You're really trying to get not like an opaque, but just a bland reference to an object. That's all you're trying to do. And you're really, the intention is that you're not calling anything on it. I just have to implement things underneath the scenes to make that work. But one thing I thought of is if I have a make method here is that there's no way to distinguish between, when you call make, distinguish isn't the right word. When I do a make, I'm going to have to do a dot instance method call on it to say I want to create an instance of the mock, or I want to create an instance of this holder object. So I don't know if I put this in code somewhere. I might have, and then I probably deleted it as a comment. But that I want to have rock.create.instance, and the instance is what are actually the constructors. Actually, I might, now that I think I just said it, rock.create.instance, rock.make.instance, rock.create.construct. Construct is like basically saying constructed. Instance, create, construct. Make, construct. I like instance better because that's like, it reads rock create instance, although you're not doing that in one line. But I'm babbling. The whole point is I need two generators. And so this generator is looking for when you do dot create. And so now I finally have to get to building this. I'm going to stuff everything in this rock create builder. Okay. So what I'm going to, so I pass in the mock information. I've determined that that is good. And I shouldn't get any more diagnostics as I'm generating things. I've left myself open to doing this. I've also noticed that I do have the update now for Windows to install, and I really should do that, but I'm scared. I'm scared of installing anything from a major update from Windows. And screwing myself up and having to start all over, but we'll have to do that at some point. We being me, not you, me. I have to do it. But I've left myself open that I can add to diagnostics if I need to, and have a way to say, maybe I found some more that I want to warn people about. I don't know what that would be, but I think that's a better design. In any event, let's actually get into this. Let's really see how we're going to do this. Okay. One other thing I thought of is, does it make sense? Like I'm going to have there should be an expectations. Okay. And that's going to be the holder for all the expectations. What I'm also thinking of is having a method expectations, properties expectations, and event expectations. And those all derive from that class. And they're only there as a way to trigger on the code that I'm going to create here sorry, I just blanked for a second and I had to think about what I want to do. When I do rock create, like I want to say, wish it didn't do this. If I say var x is equal to rock create ia, okay. I want to have a way to distinguish methods, get user. And then maybe you pass in some ID value. That's what you're setting as an expectation. And then maybe there's properties. And there's a get name property. Okay. Actually, we just say name. Except, if there's properties like a name, if there's a getter and a setter available, there'd be set name. There'd also be get name. Okay. And then if I have events, I could do something like this. And the reason I'm thinking this is probably the right thing to do is because if I didn't do this, this is something I wanted to see. If I didn't do this, if I had public void get user, or let's say name. Okay, dumb, but whatever. Why don't you like that? Whatever. Go away. But then I had a public string name get set. You know what? Because you're a pain, I'm going to say this.toString. There. Now, though, this is going to say, aha, it already does that. You cannot do that. Public event event. You can tell it's so, and this should also say you can't do that. Okay. The problem is I could have get name here. Okay. Fine. That's just, you know, it is what it is. But now if I did name get set, it's confusing. Okay. But it's not wrong. So it's possible somebody could do this. That's just a naming convention. You can, as you're going to see, you can say suppress in source, and it's a warning, and that's all it is. And you can have code like this. So if I try to have a get name here, I already have a get name method. And so I'm trying to avoid collisions as much as I possibly can. And so what I could do here is have a way to say methods. And what that would do is have a, I'm thinking like an internal class, an internal seal class of method expectations. And what that takes in on construction is an expectations object. So all it is like a sort of pseudo fluent interface that the one that I gave you from Rock Create is, that's the main one. And if you do methods dot, all you did is pass it into methods expectation. And then there's a extension class built on method expectations of this. And that's where I have all the expectations built on. The properties is where I build all the properties, expectations, and the events. Okay. And then at some point you would also just say var rock is equal to x dot instance. And then any constructors that would go in there, or parameters, arguments that would go into the constructor. This is just becoming a big design lecture of what I want to do. But these things are important. I have to make sure I've got these in my head correctly. So because of this, I think I've just talked myself into what I want to do. So we're going to first do method expectations. Okay, and then this is going to be internal seal class of method expectations that derives from expectations of T, where T is class. Okay, and then we're going to have a private read-only expectations of T expectations, and then we're going to have a internal method expectations, which takes it expectations of T expectations, which just does this expectations equal to expectations. Are we good? We're good. Okay. And then, yeah, so that should be all hunky-dory and everybody's happy. And so what Rock Create does is it's going to create enough of these here for what you have. You may not have any properties. So the only thing you'd see here is methods. Okay. So yeah. And then I also realized that I'm going to have usings in here as well, because this is one of the big banes of my existence with Rocks currently is the usings that you have. You have to gather all of them and then go back and insert them at the top. And you notice I have indented text writer here. It may be easier in some ways to do indented text writer. I don't know if I say var writer is equal to new indented text writer. Okay. And we say new string writer. Okay. Yay. And yes, you're going to say this should be using. Right? But now if I say writer.insert, there is no position. There's just writing, which makes sense. You're just trying to write to the stream. Okay. So, you know, makes sense. But the problem is that I'm going to have to go back and insert into the top of the file and put all the using statements in there, because it's possible that you're going to have some. In fact, not just possible, it's probable. And if I don't have those there, then I have to fully qualify everything within the code, which in some ways would be simpler-ish, but if it's code I want to read, I personally don't like seeing that. I think it looks better if you have using statements up at the top. Okay, so yeah, this has just been a big design session, and I should really just get into it. But I'm already at 20 minutes. I did do something. I made the methods, but I think I've talked myself out of the indented text writer, because I'm going to basically create a huge list of strings. And each of these strings are going to be lines, which from a memory standpoint, that may suck. But I'm going to be adding a bunch of lines into an indented text writer as well. So that may be more efficient in some ways. But yeah, I really need a way to go back in and put in using statements for all of the things that I'm doing, for lack of a better phrase I'm trying to say. Okay, so what is this that this should really look like? We're going to have usings up here, and then we're going to have public, and it needs to be, well, no, it could be it needs to be the namespace of the thing that we're trying to type to mock namespace. Okay. Stop being clever. Okay. Stop it. Maybe if I push this down, it's going to stop trying to be clever. Then what we need here is an internal static class expectations for, and then we put in the type to mock dot name namespace. Okay. And then in here, we want to say if methods internal, and this can all be internal because this is literally within the assembly we're in. Nothing should be exposed out of it, and we really don't want to do that. We want this to be internal. If methods, we want an internal expectations, method expectations, static, method expectations for the type to mock name. Okay. Methods. Okay. And this would be taking a this of expectations of type to mock name self. And what would this do? You had a blank for a second. I think we want to say new method expectations passing in self. Okay. If constructors, and we do the same thing for if properties, if events. Okay. And then we also want here, if constructors, we need to make for each constructor an internal static, something that returns a type to mock name instance. This expectations of type to mock name. Oops. self, and then any arguments that would have to be done. And this would return, this is where we have a private sealed class, a rock with the name type to mock dot name, which derives from type to mock dot name. Yeah, I just realized if you have generics, we need the name of not just the type, but the type with the generic that you closed. Right. But we'll get to that. And there is something, I think it's an iMock. Yeah. This is something that all of them, there's iMock. That's what all of the types, all of the mocks implement. And I think we're just going to go iMock. Implement members. Okay. And so what this is going to do is return a new rock of this name, passing in expectations of this. This is important. This is really important to get right. Okay. Implement constructors. So we'd have like a public type to mock name, passing in. We always have to pass this in. Okay. But then any arguments that come in. So we would say this dot expectations, and then any other initialization. And then we do the members. Okay. And the members is a whole different animal. We would also need down here, for example, if methods. We would need an internal static class method expectations for type to mock dot name. And this would then have all the methods. So for example, we would have like something like internal static void foo, which would be working off of an method expectations of one of these things. Self, and then maybe it takes an A. Okay. And then here we need to do self dot add expectations, except this is going to be an arg of an int for A. And then we do whatever we need to do to add the expectations to the thing. Okay. Yeah, this is all a bunch of hand waving and code, but this is absolutely needed. And I'm liking how this is. I mean, it looks like it's going to be a fair amount of work, but yeah, at the end of the day, this should be exactly for what we need. And now it's just a matter of actually doing it. So I've got this big create builder class in here that's going to do this monster work, but I think there'll be like a rock create method expectations class, a rock create expectations class. And so we'll defer the things to where they need to be and keep them all separate to make them testable. Otherwise, this is going to become a huge mess. And yeah, so I'm at time. I know it didn't feel like I did a lot, but this was actually extremely beneficial because this sketch work right here is absolutely crucial to get this working, so that we do end up getting down to a spot like this where we have like rock.foo of 3. If we had here foo of 3. And remember, these args, I know somebody said implicit conversions are evil. I remember reading that somewhere, but in this case, it's essential for us, because if we didn't do that, well, then I couldn't do something that looks natural, at least to me. I'd always have to do new arg, of int passing in 3. And I don't want to do that. So that to me is going to be one of these subtle tricks that you can do to say, if I know it's supposed to be this value, then just pass that in and capture that as the expectation. It will do the conversion for me here. Okay. So I think that's maybe famous last words, but I think that's going to be I think that's already what I do. If I remember right, if I look at the arg class here but there's an arg there's an is any and is default, but then there's argument expectation of t. There's that. I thought maybe I didn't do that. So, oh well. Whoops. I thought I had a way in there to say, oh no, maybe that was an idea that I had at one time to allow me to do exactly what I want to do here. But yeah, I'm babbling. This was beneficial, as I said, because having this template in my head in terms of where I want to go, to do all of this. Okay. That's what we really want to do. We do want to put a point in here though, to say, can we read editor config to figure out the space tab plus indentation? Because I'm going to have to do something where I'm going to have a list, but I want to say, okay, have you indented? Have you outdented? Keep track of that. And then what are you using for indentation? I'm just going to use a tab for now because it's simpler. But what is the indentation? And then do you indent and outdent, and keep track of that myself, because I'm going to have to insert, like I said at the top, all the using statements that exist. Okay, but I'm going to do that in future episodes. And I feel like this is now a good design for where I wanted to land. Now we just need to make it happen. So thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.